The Moon is one of the most observed celestial bodies in history. We've studied it for centuries, sent spacecraft there, and even brought rocks from its surface back to Earth. From afar, it looks like a long dead world. But sometimes, something strange happens. For a brief moment, a region on its surface suddenly lights up and then disappears. Such flashes of light have been recorded time and again over hundreds of years of observation. The problem is that to this day, no one knows for sure what causes them. Are they meteor impacts, gas escaping from beneath the surface, or simply distortions in how we observe it from Earth? To answer that question, we need to trace one of the oldest mysteries surrounding the Moon. The Moon has existed for more than 4 billion years. A world without an atmosphere, without life, and seemingly cooled and dormant for a very long time, but to assume that it is completely dead would be a premature conclusion. Over centuries of observation, astronomers have repeatedly recorded unusual phenomena appearing on its surface, brief flashes of light that flare up and then vanish into the absolute silence of space, as if something is happening without leaving behind any clear trace. These events are known as transient lunar phenomena, or TLPs, and despite being seriously studied in modern times since the mid-23rd century, they remain one of the most elusive mysteries associated with Earth's only natural satellite. What unsettles observers is not just the sudden appearance of these lights, but also their nature. Sometimes they appear as a small, isolated point. Sometimes they spread into a faint, glowing patch. And in rare cases, they even seem to carry different colors, such as red, green, or purple. Although these reports remain controversial and have yet to be confirmed with absolute certainty. These phenomena appear so quickly that they are almost impossible to catch, in many cases lasting only 1 or 2 seconds before vanishing completely, as if they had never existed. Yet what truly confuses observers is that they are not always so brief. There have been records showing that lights on the lunar surface can persist much longer, lasting from several minutes to even hours, long enough for multiple instruments to capture and confirm that this is not merely an observational error. However, duration is only part of the mystery, because the scale of these events is what truly begins to shake every existing explanation. In some instances, they resemble nothing more than tiny points of light, but in others, the illuminated regions seem to spread across tens to hundreds of miles, a scale far too large to be easily explained by isolated or minor phenomena. And when such lights appear without warning, disappear without a trace, and yet exist on such a significant scale, the real concern is no longer whether they are rare, but the undeniable fact that they have been recorded again and again over a long period of time, without a single explanation that is truly convincing. When historical observation records are compiled, a researcher in the UK uncovered a number that is hard to ignore. Around 3,000 reports of unusual light phenomena on the Moon have been documented. However, that figure does not translate directly into absolute reliability, as some of these accounts come from subjective observations, potentially influenced by instrumental errors or the limited experience of the observers. What makes the story difficult to dismiss is that as technology advanced, modern telescopes with far greater precision have continued to record similar events, suggesting that these phenomena are not simply the result of mistakes or imagination. Because of this, major scientific organizations began to take the issue more seriously, and one of the most notable efforts emerged from Europe with a dedicated observation system designed to monitor the lunar surface in real time. As this project went into operation, the data it collected revealed something even more surprising. the number of luminous events occurring on the Moon may be significantly higher than previously thought, as if what has been recorded so far is only the tip of the iceberg. These flashes of light do not appear in any fixed location. They've been recorded across many different regions of the Moon's surface, yet there is one detail that has drawn particular attention from scientists. Certain areas seem far more active than others, most notably the Aristarchus crater, where unusual luminous phenomena have repeatedly appeared throughout the history of observation. This makes the question increasingly difficult to avoid. What is actually producing these mysterious lights? Could it be extraterrestrials? The honest answer is that, at this point, no single hypothesis can fully explain the entire phenomenon. Instead, scientists are forced to accept that multiple causes may be occurring simultaneously, and it is precisely this overlap that makes tracing the true origin of TLPs far more complex. Among the more conservative explanations, meteorite impacts remain the simplest and most reasonable. When small fragments of rock from space strike the Moon's surface at extremely high speeds, they can produce brief flashes of light, just enough for Earth-based telescopes to detect, yet still not enough to account for everything that has been observed over centuries. Another line of explanation may sound less dramatic, yet it is one that many scientists take seriously: the release of gas from within the Moon. In simple terms, this is a process in which gases trapped deep beneath the surface for billions of years slowly seep out through tiny fractures in the crust. What makes this idea particularly compelling is that the Moon is not completely isolated from Earth's influence. Instead, the two bodies continuously interact through gravity. If the Moon can pull on Earth's oceans to create tides, then Earth, with its far greater mass, also exerts a force back on the Moon's structure. This force is not strong enough to create oceans, but it is sufficient to cause slight expansions and contractions across the lunar surface, placing stress on a crust that is already dry and brittle. Over time, these subtle deformations can form microscopic cracks, and it is through these openings that gas from the interior may escape. When these gas emissions interact with sunlight, they can form temporary hazy layers that reflect light, producing the brief flashes we observe. However, this remains only a hypothesis, and despite how plausible it may sound, it still cannot fully account for all of the mysterious light phenomena that have been recorded on the Moon's surface. However, not everything we see is actually happening on the Moon's surface, because the act of observing from Earth is itself a process filled with potential distortions. Satellites passing overhead, high-altitude jet aircraft, or even familiar atmospheric phenomena such as light pillars and halos, formed when light is reflected or refracted through ice crystals suspended in the air, can all create visual effects that make observers believe the Moon is emitting unusual light. When these factors combine with the limitations of optical instruments and the viewing angle from Earth, the boundary between genuine lunar events and illusions created by the observing environment becomes incredibly fragile. And it is precisely this ambiguity that makes the situation so frustrating, because even after centuries of collected data, we still cannot say with certainty what is a real signal and what is merely noise. That is why scientists are no longer relying solely on scattered observations, but are instead working to develop more precise monitoring systems, aiming to completely separate what is truly happening on the Moon from what is simply a product of Earth's own sky. To break free from the cycle of observation and doubt, astronomers have begun turning to more precise methods. And one of the most compelling ideas is the development of a dual observation system designed to eliminate error from the very beginning. Instead of relying on a single telescope, they use two optical tubes mounted side by side on the same platform, each operating independently with its own camera and processing system. When both instruments are pointed at the Moon and record a luminous event at the same time and in the same location, the likelihood that it is merely interference from Earth's environment is significantly reduced. But the more critical aspect lies behind those lenses. The collected data is fed into automated analysis systems, where artificial intelligence begins to play a central role. Rather than requiring humans to examine each frame, software can process vast amounts of data, learning to recognize the characteristics of TLPs and gradually distinguish them from sources of interference such as satellites, aircraft, or atmospheric effects. Over time, this system not only helps confirm which phenomena are truly occurring on the Moon, but also moves closer to fully separating what is actually happening out there from what exists only within the way we observe it. At first glance, the Moon appears completely isolated from Earth, but upon closer observation, there are similarities that make everything feel strangely familiar. If earthquakes are a common phenomenon on Earth, then the Moon has its own counterpart, though far less known: moonquakes. These are not random vibrations, but the result of a process that has unfolded over billions of years. As the Moon's interior has gradually cooled since its formation, its structure has slowly but continuously contracted. This process places stress on the outer crust, which is already dry and brittle, preventing it from shrinking evenly and causing it to compress and form folds across the surface. But instead of bending like a soft material, this crust fractures, creating steep fault scarps where sections of rock slide over one another, leaving behind sharply defined step-like features in the lunar landscape. Over hundreds of millions of years, the Moon has not only changed on the surface, but has also physically shrunk, with an estimated total contraction of about 150 feet, a number that may not sound dramatic, yet it is enough to drive geological deformation on a global scale. This slow, continuous contraction has built up stress within the brittle crust, and when that pressure exceeds its limits, it is released in the form of moonquakes. What is striking is that these tremors are not as weak as many might assume. In some cases, they can reach magnitudes of around 5.5 on the Richter scale, strong enough to cause significant damage if they occurred on Earth. But what makes them even more unsettling is their duration. While an earthquake on Earth typically ends in less than a minute, on the Moon, due to its dry, rigid structure and the absence of water to absorb seismic energy, vibrations can travel and persist far longer, sometimes lasting dozens of times longer, causing the entire surface to resonate in a prolonged, lingering motion. The Moon may appear quiet from a distance, but its environment is harsh in ways humans have never truly experienced firsthand, and there are numerous phenomena capable of posing serious threats to anyone who sets foot on its surface. That is why, as plans to return to the Moon and even establish a long-term presence continue to be pursued by NASA, understanding every detail of this environment is no longer optional, but essential. One of the greatest challenges is not simply getting there, but figuring out how to survive on a surface that can undergo prolonged shaking from moonquakes, where any constructed structure must withstand repeated vibrations over extended periods, requiring materials that are not only strong, but also flexible enough to absorb energy rather than fail under stress. However, not every lunar-related phenomenon is a threat, because alongside that harshness, there are also events that are completely harmless yet still leave observers in awe. One of these is the moonbow, a rare but very real phenomenon that appears at night when light from the Moon interacts with water droplets in the air. In essence, the process is no different from how a typical rainbow forms, except that instead of sunlight, the source here is far weaker reflected light from the Moon, making the phenomenon far more subtle, delicate, and much harder to perceive with the naked eye. As light continues to bend once more inside water droplets, It no longer retains its original form, but separates into different bands of color, where shorter wavelengths like blue and violet are deflected more, while longer wavelengths like red are deflected less. And it is precisely this difference in angles that creates the characteristic spectrum we recognize as a rainbow. But when the light source is not the sun, but the faint reflected glow of the moon, everything changes. Moonlight is about 400,000 times weaker than sunlight, making this phenomenon incredibly faint, so much so that in many cases the human eye can barely distinguish any colors at all, perceiving only a pale, almost white arc suspended in the darkness. For that reason, observing a moonbow is not only rare, but also requires an almost perfect alignment of conditions. The moon must be in a full phase and positioned low near the horizon. The sky must be dark and free of light pollution. There must be a source of water in the air, such as mist or spray from a waterfall, and the observer must stand with their back to the moon so the light can pass through the droplets at the correct angle. Under such ideal circumstances, a few locations on Earth have become well known for this phenomenon, such as Yosemite National Park, Cumberland Falls, and Victoria Falls, where the combination of light, terrain, and airborne water creates one of the rarest and most elusive spectacles that moonlight can offer. A moonbow may be one of the rarest and most beautiful sights created by the moon's faint light, but only the fortunate ever get a chance to witness it. Still, there is another phenomenon that is far more common and just as captivating: the lunar halo, a glowing ring encircling the moon that can appear right before your eyes without the need to travel to any special location. This effect forms when moonlight passes through high-altitude cirrus clouds filled with countless hexagonal ice crystals. And it is these tiny structures that bend and refract the light with remarkable precision, creating a perfect luminous circle around the moon in the night sky. Yet, even though such phenomena can be explained relatively clearly and are easy to observe, they represent only the most understandable layer among the many mysteries the moon still conceals. Beneath that seemingly quiet surface, scientists have recently uncovered something far more astonishing: a massive structure buried deep within the crust. Located in the region known as the South Pole Aitken Basin, recognized as the largest impact basin in the entire solar system. As researchers analyzed data from this area, they identified the presence of an anomalous mass beneath the surface, something that should not exist there, according to conventional geological models. And this discovery has opened yet another question about the moon's true history, one we still cannot fully answer. This mass is not small by any standard. It lies about 180 miles beneath the surface and resembles a massive metallic core that has been buried deep in the moon's history. When scientists modeled and calculated its properties, the numbers they arrived at were staggering. Its mass is estimated at around 4.8 quintillion pounds, comparable to billions of massive structures on Earth combined. And it is so heavy that it has depressed the basin's floor by roughly half a mile. This raises a question that is almost impossible to ignore. How could something like this exist there? The most widely supported explanation traces back to the moon's extremely violent past, when it was struck by a colossal object roughly the size of a large asteroid. The South Pole Aitken Basin, stretching over 1,500 miles in diameter, is the scar left behind by that event. And when you begin to grasp the scale of this impact, it becomes clear that whatever created it was no small object, but a collision powerful enough to reshape the structure of an entire world. Not all scientists agree with the impact hypothesis, as some believe this anomalous mass may have formed from within the moon itself, back when it was still a molten world covered in liquid magma. As that material gradually cooled and solidified, heavier components could have sunk inward, accumulating into a dense mass deep beneath the crust, eventually becoming locked in place as a relic of the moon's geological past. While its true origin remains a matter of debate, the South Pole Aitken Basin has long become one of the most compelling regions for the scientific community, not only because of the mystery it holds, but also because of its practical potential. Numerous exploration plans have been proposed targeting this area and the surrounding South Polar region, which is considered one of the most promising locations for future missions. In some areas, near-continuous sunlight may be available, offering the possibility of stable solar energy generation, while permanently shadowed regions within deep craters are believed to contain reserves of frozen water, an essential resource for sustaining life and producing fuel. All of these factors make this region not just a scientific enigma, but a strategic objective, one that could serve as a stepping stone for humanity's deeper ventures into space. Focusing on what lies right in front of us, what is familiar and within reach, can sometimes be the very key to unlock the far greater ambitions. The Moon is not merely a destination. It is more like a natural laboratory where humanity can test everything before daring to venture deeper into the cosmos. What we learn from living and operating there, from building shelters and extracting resources to adapting to an unforgiving environment, could become the direct foundation for future plans to send humans to Mars. Instead of rushing headlong toward distant, high-risk goals, understanding our own backyard first may reduce mistakes and significantly improve the chances of success. And perhaps the journey to worlds never touched by human footsteps does not begin in the farthest reaches of space, but by turning back to something that has always been there, hanging quietly in the night sky, waiting for us to truly understand it. Perhaps what lingers after this journey is not a clear answer, but the feeling that even the most familiar objects in the night sky can still hide mysteries yet to be uncovered. And if you are someone who is drawn to stories like these, documentaries about space, the Moon, where every hypothesis leads to an even greater mystery, then thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If this video sparked your curiosity or made you see the Moon in a different way, feel free to share it. Leave a comment to let me know your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe to continue exploring the journeys ahead. Goodbye and see you next time.